Well, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you when you're watching it. For me, it is currently Saturday, June 12th, 2021, noon in Seattle. Having slight technical issues at the moment. Mostly, I cannot. I think maybe I have a chat window here, so I'm not 100% sure on that. Some of my OBS stuff has been a little weird, so hopefully, hopefully this chat window will work. Hey, it's been a couple of weeks. Last time we got together, I sort of stumped myself with some issues related to the TCP runner stuff that I've been doing. I think I'm still stumped, which is not the best place to be, but sometimes that's where you are. And I think today I'm going to not bother with that. I'm going to do some work off the main feature list instead. Just because I want to make some forward progress, and because I'm not 100% sure exactly where that's going to go yet. So given that, I think the first thing I want to do is let's go ahead and flip over to the screen, and let's pop up our discussion list. And let's run through discussions and see what's been unanswered since the last time we got together. Which looks like these four. So let's go ahead and pop those four into new tabs and go take a look. See what people are talking about. Calling dispose async if initialize was failed. Hi, I've got unexpected behavior when I get an exception side initialize async. Maybe I thought that would if it's called anytime. This is the correct. Yes, this is the correct behavior. I modeled I async lifetime. Async lifetimes initialize async and dispose async after the way constructor and dispose works. If the constructor fails, dispose is not called. As such, the same behavior exists with initialize async and dispose async. If you do work in initialize async that needs to be cleaned up, this is a new paragraph. Okay, if you do work in initialize async that needs to be cleaned up even when it throws, then you should use a try catch block to do that cleanup. If your dispose async method is written in such a way to clean up a partially initialized object correctly, and your catch block could be just a simple call to await dispose async. That is my answer. Okay, 1 down, 3 to go. Oh, it's an easy one. Okay, how to programmatically run XUnit tests in parallel. A few test collections, if I run them via test runner, they run parallelly, but if I run them in assembly runner, they run sequentially. How can I run tests in parallel? How can I apply that when I'm using assembly runner? Assembly runner should already obey any settings from xunitrunner.json or the attributes you show above. Can you provide a repro project that shows the problem? If so, please open a new issue. Thanks. Okay, that's easy. It's broken. All right, well, show me how, and I'll fix it. Outputting results from assembly runner into an XML file. I'm using XUnit in a bit of an odd way, but it's the only way to properly run tests with project I'm managing. We're writing a plugin for Rhino And I have two sets of tests, real and virtual. Virtual tests are ones that can be run headlessly. However, real tests involve me opening the program, creating files, and so on and so forth. The way I would describe that for people who are looking for verbiage here besides real and virtual, sounds to me like, since they're using Rhino, Rhino is a mocking framework, if I remember correctly. Or that's not RhinoMox, that's something else. Okay, this is a modeling system. Okay, never mind. That's not what I was going to say then. Let me modify what I was going to say very quickly. So the way I would describe these two sets of tests, rather than virtual, I would call that an acceptance test. And rather than real, I would call that an exploratory test. And these are generally the words that I would use, that I think most people would use in this kind of a scenario for describing this kind of testing. Exploratory testing or scripted testing, maybe. Depending, I mean, it sounds like maybe he's doing more like scripted testing than exploratory testing, but for me, exploratory testing means, hey, I'm just going to open the app, I'm going to poke around until I find issues. Since there's a test runner back here, then there's probably a scripted test where the test runner is expecting you to interact with some things and do them in a particular manner. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Real testing, okay, so to achieve this, I've been using Assembly Runner. Whilst this works perfectly and outputs my test nicely to the console application, I can't for the life of me figure out how to pipe these test results into a properly formatted XML file. I feel like this has been asked before. Not there, apparently. Let's go see if this has been asked here. XML assembly runner. Assembly runner. XML. I feel like this has been asked. It's weird. All right, all the way back. Yeah, so... Oh. Okay, well, this is what I get for not scrolling. I apparently am thinking of this exact one. And I've already said, hey, we don't actually do this. Okay. Thank you. I could not have asked for more. I'll digest this and see what I can do. Okay, so I got all the way to the bottom of this. Same requirement to be able to trigger run, wanting the output. Yep. Manage this but ends up with lots of problems with app demands, need to try system reflection to call upon the hidden classes, I think. All right, so this, I think, from my perspective, has already been answered. Just hasn't been marked as answered. Okay. At least my memory is correct that I did answer a question like this, and it turns out it was exactly this question. Test installation with .NET Core, .NET 5, .NET 6. Put a question on Stack Overflow the other day on isolating tests. I wonder if it's possible, either through actually using some other technique. Here, okay. The question is basically, is it possible to have tests run under a clean context each time? Something like the following deliberately coded class. Static. This isn't possible today. Generally, the strategy I use personally is don't use statics, which is a tough hill for some people to climb. An in-between version would be that your internal classes, your internal implementation details don't use the statics. Especially because this probably changes the public API service of your library. Okay. In-between version would be your internal implementation details. Don't use the statics, but instead use an instance in production, an interface instance. In production, that interface instance would just wrap calls to the static. But in testing, it would be a new clean instance per test. At the moment, what you're suggesting here for a clean context is restart the process. At the moment, we have no plans. Add this as a feature, because it would be extremely slow. Yeah. All right, well, there's that answer. Okay. That should put my face on everything here. It does. Good. One of these days I'm going to come through and start marking some of these things as answered. All right. Issues. Looks like we've got 3 new issues. I'm always looking for things with tags. If things have been tagged, that means I've looked at them. Looks like we got 3. Changes in TFM hierarchy for .NET 6 on Android, iOS, etc. File not found, Microsoft Maui Core, device tests, blah, 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 blah. Parameter, somebody file name, guard file exists. Okay. Reason. Previously we had blah, 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 blah. This meant packages that contained NetCore app and Net Standard could be used to have the NetCore app work for .NET Core, and .NET Standard could effectively be used by... Now, since this is like this, then you get .NET Core 6, you get .NET Core, yep. Totally agree, that's all true. Whereas Xamarin App is now a .NET Core app, the restore of all the Xune packages now use NetCore app DLLs, which seems to assume a .NET Core on the desktop environment. Yep. Fix attempts. But the issues are named differently, extra impose. Yeah, so I don't think this is going to be a problem in V3 because unit test projects will now be standalone executables. So you'll be able to mark your unit test project as what they say it was NetCore Android. As NetCore Android directly. Said we aren't planning at the moment. Let's see. So the linking should all work as you would expect. That said, it's very unlikely that we'll have any runners support the initial alpha of V3 other than .NET Framework and .NET Core. So I'm not sure whether the .NET Core console app default will actually work in this scenario. We'll have to visit this once the first alphas are available and see what's involved in getting the entry point stub for Android project to work. Okay, so there's that. Label-wise, this is going to be, I want to say, reporters run a utility is probably right, although that's not exactly what I want, but that's close enough. This is a 3.0 feature. That's probably the closest description of that. Okay. System argument exception for generic theory data. I created a test for my helpers library, and for generic theory data, one test is failed for null generic argument. I tried to bind object, but the type argument can be resolved. Remove any test issues.zip. String object, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's true, probably. Really don't know. So this is 2315. Let's go ahead and download this. Let's go to our repro folder. 2315. Nope. And let's extract downloads. What was that called? That was called remove any test issue. And let's take a quick look at this code. See if we can figure out what's going on here. So here's the helper. Interesting that this does not compile. Can't just say reference, I have to say class, I think. And now we can't do this because we don't know that T is a class here. That does not break any of this. Let's see if that breaks anything over here. And S is a class. Oh, what is Y? Y is an S. Right. Get the syntax correct, sir. Okay. That makes everybody build, presumably. I really, like, this is just still so much of a brand new and tough environment for me that I clearly have not been getting everything configured yet. Like, for example, would you ever see a standard or a text editor toolbar for me? No, you would not. Okay. And, certainly not an XML toolbar either. Okay, so 241, 243, very good. That's all good. Integration helper, okay. So these tests, where is Test Explorer? Come down here, Test Explorer, even though I'm not going to let you live. None of these are allowed to run. I guess this must be the problem that is currently being experienced. Yeah, so that's the one that fails, huh? So if I take that out of the list, and then rebuild, it'll run. Violates constraint type of T. Oh, we have T constraints, and I had to put all these constraints here to get this to compile, right? So let me undo all of my changes here. Let me undo all of my changes here. This probably isn't even going to build anymore, right? Right. Error list, you need to get minimized. Test Explorer, you need to get minimized. You're going to have to forgive me a little bit. I'm going to have to tweak my environment as we go here because obviously I have not done that. Task list, nope, that's not it. I want build, which I think is here. Build and run. No, there's somewhere that says don't pop up this window, the error window. Where are you? Are you here? Oh, okay, there you go. Show the error list of the build finished errors. Yeah, let's get that out of here. I don't care about that. I like output better. Yeah, I can't even compile this code. My guess is that whoever's doing this not even on 2019. Otherwise, they'd have the same problem, right? I'm guessing you can't really edit the solution file, but the version's probably not really in there anyway. Do you have a Lang version? Maybe this is part of the problem. Maybe this needs a Lang version as well. No, see, it has 7.3, and it has 7.3. Well, I can't get it to compile. Let me .NET build this. Yeah, see, I can't even get this to compile. Okay. I need a rectangular snip, please. Okay. Over here. Unfortunately, I can't get your repro to build. Either from the command line with .NET K50301, nor with VS 2019. So unfortunately we're going to have to put waiting for repro response on that. Which I should also go look through some of my older issues to see if I have any waiting for repro responses that I got repros or responses for. Alright, 2019 Community 1691 had a test class similar to this. Problem is that when running these tests, code coverage enabled, tools are unable to collect code coverage using static data property, which generates data into the feed using test method. Here is the same test class, but for the Onion framework. However, you can collect. Underlying cause. I filed support ticket with CodeRush to see what's going on. And you use a single process for both test discovery, while XUnit uses separate processes, one process for test discovery and the other for... Yeah. This is only true if you're using our VS test adapter. Unit.runner.visual Studio. And that design choice is out of our hands, unfortunately. I don't know how to solve this problem with CodeRush, but there isn't a problem collecting code coverage with Coverlet. So my guess is this is probably not something that we can or will fix. CodeRush people would like to reach out. Please direct them to this issue. Thanks. my guess is what's happening here is this person is writing, when they run their NUnit test, they're not using the NUnit VS Test plugin. They're probably using an NUnit plugin directly inside of Visual Studio. That's going to be my guess. What's going on here? Okay, let's look at the waiting for repro responses. I haven't done this in forever. So my apologies if one of these is you. Porting test due to build errors yet none exist. Please provide a repro project. Please reopen with a repro. Yep. Cert contains supports several ways to verify a collection. Okay, yep. If you know the equality compare uses structural equality, you can print a diff between expected and actual. Why do I want to say the word different there? How would Exchange.net know that don't instead we are proposing a new assert So I'm going to mark this as a dupe. Now, and close it. Okay. WinUI 3 support. As you may know, Microsoft just released WinUI. What do you propose support for this would look like? Unit testing frameworks, generally agnostic. Yeah, so this is more than a year ago. I'm gonna closed for age. Please open a discussion. If you have a proposed portal. Nice. Unable to repro this in current v3. Okay, yep, please reopen the repro. It's going to be a common thing. Let's go ahead and copy paste to that. Works in 2017, broke in 2019. I actually serialize one of always null properties and tests are run. Probably. Okay, thanks. Can you help me out with some information that I might be able to use to provide context and narrow the scope? Yeah, okay. Please reopen with a repro. I mean, that was now almost 2 years ago. Test failing due to custom JSON converter. All JSON parsing is done internally by XML. Uses a custom parser that you cannot configure. don't think this has anything to do with me. But we'll give it a try. Alright, this is 1815, huh? Next unit 1815. Next unit 1815. .NET new SLN. .NET new X unit. Okay, you can ignore that. That's fine. I will have to fix that. Yeah, I don't know what I might leak here, so let me turn the screen off for a moment. Let's see, app data, roaming, NuGet config. Okay. Restore. I'm going to find a project to restore. Would. .NET SLN add. I know you can't see anything, just hang on. I want to make sure I didn't break anything before I turn the screen back on. Okay, looks good. Whew. All right. Yeah, this is some work stuff that was broken. We can ignore that for the moment. Hopefully. Okay. Let's go ahead and pop this now up into Visual Studio. Two of them. Can make one of them go away. That sounds great. Okay, so the unit test in question was this. Oh, it was already highlighted. Hey, don't undo all the hard work you did with the mouse. So I need a reference to Newtonsoft.json, right? Newtonsoft. Let's go to NuGet, please. Newtonsoft JSON. Yeah, don't ever show that again. And because I closed the other window before I opened this one, I lost all of my configurations. Let's try not to do that again. No text editor, please. Will you build? Will it blend? Alright, so that builds. Let's go to Test Explorer. See what happens here and run them. Alright. Unable to repro. There you go. Unable to repro. New snip. Give me a Windows snip. I am unable to repro with the given code. Right? Please reopen with a full repro project. Thanks. And we'll close because it's old. Old. Okay. So basically the only one left with waiting for repro is the one we just marked as waiting for repro. Good. I answered this one, right? I just didn't put a... I believe this one is going to be external. Right? Okay. PRs, nothing really new. Well, the newest one is March 10th, and nothing new here. All right, that looks like the end of that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and dock this down here and minimize it, but then also close it. Actually, I can. All right, mouse. I hear what you're telling me. Click in the right place. One last thing. Let's open an XML file so that I can get rid of that toolbar. That's fantastic. Let's close Visual Studio so that it remembers these for the next Visual Studio that I open. Okay. So, here we are. Now, working on new stuff. So, these architecture ones are probably too big to be worried about right now, although this feature equivalence config files and runner switches is actually probably not as bad as it sounds. What that is today, let's actually go open, XUnit itself. And I'm going to make Visual Studio sad here because I'm going to commit this as I have no idea what I'm doing. Please send help. Right, and then I am going to switch to dev, which I think should be the same place as main. It is. Okay, good. Wow, that font is super small. Holy shnikes. Let's make these fonts bigger and also not Helvetica. Okay. But I mean, when I say I really haven't used this machine, like I really clearly have not used this machine. Seago UI 11. I don't know why I have light there. It should be Seago UI regular 11. User interface font should be Seago UI bold 11. And the display font is definitely not going to be Courier. Let's use JetBrains Mono, and we'll do 12. That's probably big enough. There we go. And then this whole thing is like no idea what that was all about. Let's flip this over here. All right, we'll get this like this. Why did you move? Okay, good enough. Yep, that looks good. You can just go away for the moment. All right, how upset did I make Visual Studio? Apparently not that upset. All right, so what we were talking about was feature equivalents, config files, and runner switches. Let's go here, xunit.net. This is our documentation site. Talk about configuration files. So you see all these configuration files. Let me make this nice and big for you. All these configuration file options, app domain, diagnostic messages, blah, 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 blah. Right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of these. 2 of these actually collapse into a single command line option, but now that I have this built, if we come over here and we look at v3.runner.console bin debug, net something, right? We have all of these switches. So some of these directly map to switch it to values here. So for example, app domain, if I look at app domain, I have required if available and denied. And if I look at app domains, I have required and denied. I don't have an if available. I think if available is probably going away in v3. But at least at the moment, I don't have it there. So no shadow is an equivalent to shadow copy, true or false. So I think what I'd like to do is this feature that's sort of listed in the roadmap is to make sure that everything that I can do via a command line switch, I should be able to do within reason via a configuration value. And when I say within reason, like I think, like dash wait or dash debug, some of those don't really make sense. Like those are really very interactive things. But like fail skips, I don't think there's a fail skips here. And there really should be, right? Anybody who wants to fail skips should be able to just put it in a config file and say, hey, I always want skips to fail. So anyway, that's what that is. That's a possibility for today. So that's one. We'll pop that open. Yeah, that's a possibility today. Core framework. What's not done? Make collection definitions better. Support ordering test cases in a collection. Add timed out as a potential test result. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm going to throw that up. Richer data theory via than IEnumerable. Yeah, that's a big one. That's actually more almost like an architecture thing. But support for capturing console debug trace output. Not today. Create a new supertype for fact attribute. Not today. Add assembly fixture support. Why do I think I already did this? I think I already did this. Assembly fixture. Nope. What did I do? Huh. Collection fixture. There's I collection fixture. Actually, wow, that. So I don't have an I assembly fixture. What are my attributes? I'm sure I have a lot of them. So I have an assembly level trait. Assembly level fixture. All right. Well, this is an interesting one. I feel like it's a little bit too much to take on today. I only want to stream for about another hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. I think this is going to be a little bit too big for one sitting, and I really want to accomplish some things today. Like, it's a mental thing, right? Support async data theory, add core multiplier version of maximum counts. That's kind of an interesting one. That also goes along with this feature equivalence thing. I really like this idea. I'm going to pop that up as a maybe. Add string assert flag to not shorten strings. Add more flexibility. Actually, I don't want to do anything in the insertion library today. It's just a little bit more of a pain than I really want to do. V3 cross-process RPC. Okay. Default culture is a runner option. I like this too. This also falls into that same bucket. Support properties for MS Build runner options. What is that? I don't even remember that. Allow setting all parameters via properties in MS Build targets. We'll run tests but ignore the P XUnit test XML switch because variable XUnit test XML is an MS Build item instead of a property value. Oh, okay. At the moment, running tests and say, yeah, that's That's a breaking change, but I'm okay with making that a breaking change in V3. I just don't think I'm going to do that today. Let's see. Custom runner support, test filtering expressions, properly handle multi-line skip messages. That's an interesting one. List discovery results, add a fast cancel switch for console runners, add TRX output transform. Okay, none of those really. And then bugs, we might come back to bugs. Add timeout to test state status. I'd like to be able to note in my report that a test timed out as opposed to through an error. This involves add timeout to the test status enumeration and use this value when the test has timed out based on time test method timeout property. Test status enumeration. What is a test status enumeration? Nope. I'm gonna say that doesn't sound like. Yeah. Was there a test status in V2? I'm just not remembering. Test status. Nope. Okay. Okay. Not 100% sure what test status you mean here. My interpretation is that on the xnews.net side, this would be in case of a new what do we call this? Test passed, as an example. Message, I guess. A new, that's not really what I wanted. Test passed. New test result message. Probably the simplest change to make that wouldn't break expectations with existing test messages. Okay, so I go look at test failed. I know it has an underscore in it, and I didn't put an underscore in that message. That's because at some point I'm getting rid of these underscores, and you know, sure. So tests failed has the moment, this is all the failure information. So the parsed out exception messages and stack traces. What it would also need would be some kind of a flag to indicate this was a timeout. Because the alternative would be to introduce a new message here, which would be test timed out. And it basically becomes a new state. Right, so test finished, if I look at test result message, right, test result message basically says, hey, you ran for some time and you had some output. What was the actual result? Well, you have to look at the actual message. And so a test failed is a test result message, but by definition of its type indicates that it was a failure. So the question is, in my mind, is timeout just a special mode of failure, or is it its own status type. And in my mind, timed out is a specialization of failure. It is still failure and should be treated as failure. If you care that the failure was because of a timeout, then we'll tell you that. So I think what I want here is like a failure cause. So if I'm going to do that, I think what that means is I want like a failure cause enumeration. Not technically a message, it's more like a value that's used in a message. Not really an abstraction either. These are really all the base classes for messages. So what I want is a failure cause. I think that's what I'll just call it, is failure cause. We'll put it right out here at the root, I guess. Failure cause, failure cause. And we'll say exception is 0. And timed out is 1. Let's see, we'll say indicates the cause of the test failure. Indicates that the test failed because it threw an exception. Assertion failures exceptions, so they also would indicate this as a cause. That's it. As I write that, now I'm thinking, is that actually... Do I want to differentiate between an assertion failure and a thrown exception? And if I do, how do I do so? Because XUnit allows you to have your own assertion libraries, it sort of means that we would need some mechanism for an exception to indicate that it was a failure. An assertion failure. Which is actually not a bad idea. Like if I just had a marker interface and said, hey, if you're going to throw an exception and you want it to indicate this thing happened because of assertion, but I want to call this timeout, not timed out. Yeah, let's roll this for a minute. Indicates that the test failed because of an assertion failure. That is an exception. I don't want to... Do I really want to do a marker interface? The problem with a marker interface is it forces anybody to have an exception library to bring in a copy of XUnit just to have that marker interface. Implements. What if I do it like this? What if I do it by convention? For exceptions shipped with xunit.net itself, there. Okay. That's an interesting idea, right? I'm gonna stew on that while I'm typing the rest of this code and figure out if that's really what I want to do. Indicates that the test failed because it exceeded the allowed time to run, typically specified via fact attribute fact attribute's not in this assembly. I can reference it in doc terms. I just have to figure out, I think it's M for member, right? M. So this is xunit.factattribute.timeout. xunit.factattribute.timeout. Let me make sure I'm doing this correctly. .NET XML doc comments. XML doc comments. CREF. Exactly. CREF attribute in XML means code reference. So here is one where you can actually see it and the compiler can resolve it. Yeah. M. So get 0, this is perfect. Get 0 method was translated to this. M means method, so that's not good. For a complete list of prefixes, see processing the XML file. P is property. Okay. Very good. That would. I'm gonna. Unit dot. Data assertion. We do have SDK. The SDK namespace. Okay, so we do have the SDK namespace in there. That's okay. That's a good place to put it. I assertion exception. But this is generally found by convention rather than type to prevent third-party assertion libraries from needing to take any references to xunit.net binaries. Okay, good. Very good. Okay, I'm good with that. What that means is I'm going to have to go. I know this is actually in a different. This is in a different project in GitHub, so I'll make the changes here, and then I'll just port those over to the other project, and then put them in there, and then bring the submodule over because I bring it over as a submodule. So let me go ahead and add. My assertion exception. All right, so this is going to be public interface assertion exception. Your namespace is SDK, and you'll be like that. The marker interface implemented by all built-in assertion exceptions so that test failures can be marked with So are enum values fields? I think they are. xunit.v3.failure pause assertion. Okay. So if that's going to be like that, then that means all my exceptions. I have a base exception here, right? Xunit exception. I think. Do we have any of these that aren't? Let's see. Show implementations. No, show find all references. You should be minimized down there, and then you take a resize. American mouse. I realize I'm clicking in the wrong place now. I know I am. Group by definition only. No. That's probably the best view for this. All right. All exception is a. Yep. So you're a regular failure. You're a regular fail. So fail in range, not empty, not null, not same. Property changed. Raises, skip. So this is for skipping. That's okay because we handle those specially. Then we have, okay, not nullable. Those are the exact same things except the not nullable. And then tests, this is all just references. Okay, so this looks good. Just there should be all that we need. Okay, so now we have failure cause. Let's go use failure cause. That's not what I meant, that's what I meant. So let's go use failure cause in. It's really not what I meant. In where did the messages go? Are they in core? Alright. No, they're in common. Where are they in common? Oh, in V3. Why did I not see V3 sitting there? Right underneath utility. Okay. Alright, so test failed is going to have a failure cause, which we'll call it cause. If I don't, kind of want to guard because I want to make sure that we have valid values. I think. You can start out as an exception, the assumption, and then your set is guard. Don't have an enum guard, huh? You do a guard argument value. This is cause. message will be that. So I can't quite do it like that because that's not going to return anything, right? So I have to do this. Cause is value. Whoops, this should be value, not cause. Enum is defined. Okay. So from exception, we're going to need to have validation here. We're also going to want like a from timeout as well. I think this is enough to get this to build. I want to start writing some tests before I do any more actual implementation. I haven't really done any testable implementation much except for this. Except for this, I can start with test for that. Which I should have written first. Use AI assisted IntelliCode. Yeah, go ahead. Whatever. I accept these terms. Whatever. Go away. Yes. Okay. This built, right? Yeah, this built. All right, let's go find our common tests. Let's make these our startup project. And I guess you go in the root. No, you're testing. By the way, failure cause should be in the v3 folder. This operation might take a long time. No, it really won't. Thanks for asking, though. Alright, so in v3, we need a folder here called v3, and then messages, and we need test failed tests, add a class, test failed tests. I don't particularly need that to be like that. And whoops, we don't do namespaces for tests around these parts. Yep, that's fine. Defaults, failure cause is exception. TF, let's see, failed is new, test failed. Failure cause dot exception. Failed dot cause. Run that. Okay. While we're here, console is always the wrong answer. Always, always. And it's a little on the small side, and that's definitely a little on the small side. Let's go with 160 by 50. Let's go with our common 20 by 20. Okay, looks good. All right. Here, we're going to wrap these in a class called cause, because these are all cause checks. Guard clause. All right, so we'll say, I actually looked up my guard clauses first. What do I want here? I want a record exception. New test failed with cause being no 12. I want to cast it like that. Yep. This type, argument, exception. Parameter name should be cause. We'll do that. That'll fail. That'll give us the message. Cause is not a valid value from that. We use starts with here because this is really starts with because we really don't. I already checked the parameter name down here. This is actually the whole exception message here. So, okay. So that's our guard clause. And I'll just make one where we set it. Oops, cause, failure cause, timeout, failure cause, timeout. Suppose you could make that a theory if we really wanted to. Right. Theory. This could be failure cause. All right. On all of them, that's great. Okay. So the other thing we really need to test here is we really need to test from exception. Right? We really need to test from exception. Non-assertion exception. And so we'll say EX is a new divide by 0 exception. And then is test failed from exception. Atom ID, collection ID, class ID, method ID, case ID, test ID, (2112M). failure cause exception, failed cause. This is going to continue to work, right? Built-in assertion exception. So here we want equal exception. We expected 42, got 2112. Right, and if we do this, this should be now an assertion failure. That should fail because we haven't implemented it yet. Okay. So over here, we're going to look at that. And we're going to grab, let's see. We want ex get type interfaces any whose name is assertion exception. That's what we decided on, right? Yep. You will be a failure cause assertion, otherwise you will be a failure cause exception. Then cause will be cause. That should now pass. Then lastly, do this just to make sure that we don't ever have a strong tie to our actual type, even though we know we didn't. Assert. Okay, good. We know that's doing its job. Then, lastly, we do this again. So now we make a my exception. And that should be an assertion exception. And it is. Okay, very good. So I think that's it. These things all get serialized. So I guess my question for serialization is going to come down to does our serialization support enums? Should, because it's all based on the built-in JSON serializer. The question is the built-in JSON serializer going to do the right thing? Let's try this. Let's go to here. Oops, that's the wrong place. Trying something out. All right, let's get this. have to do to JSON? Yeah, to JSON. What happens here? I am curious. Oh yeah, you're bytes, aren't you? Yeah. Encoding to string. Nope. UTF-8 to string. Nope. Get string. Get string. Oh, it's clearly been too long, huh? Serialized. Let's go look at what the text is. Cause is 1. That's not great. How do I make the built-in serializer going to be in the options, right? Enum. There's a converter. There's converters. So this is JSON serializer is in system text JSON serializer. System text JSON serializer enum as string. Yeah, that. Converters, new JSON string enum converter, huh? Okay. I'm okay with that. Cause, assertion. Perfect. That's all I wanted to know. Okay. Don't want to leave that test there, though. Do I want to have a test that says enums are converted to strings, or do you just want to trust that it doesn't? This would be somewhere in the message, sync message tests. Okay, well, if you have an underscore, then I guess I should have an underscore. Should be line feeds. You know you should be line feeds. Oh, wrong folder. Crap, it takes a long time when you do it in project mode like that. Everything is good. Okay, so serialization excludes null values. So what I'd want to do then is I'd want to do one of these with round trip traits. So I'd want to do public void serializes mean the strings. So your message sync message, and then you have public failure cause. We'll just do a simple get set here. And then we'll say there's a new test message with a enum. For your cause is failure cause assertion. Then we will result is encoding state get string message JSON. Like this. I don't think we actually need that. We're just going to have what we want. So let's go ahead and run this. This is also in common. Right? We expected this. So we have that. Okay, so we have that plus that is that. That is that. All right. Okay. Good. It's actually two things to commit. All right. So first thing is we'll do the message sync message stuff. Oops. So we do that. That makes a lot more sense than numbers. Now we have test failed, failure cause, and tests. We have v3 common tests. So basically this says, there's all of our tests, right? There's our failure cause. There's our test failed. Now that's not going to pass without the other half because we're doing the built-in exception. That's not going to pass without this half. You see this little m is basically saying, hey, you've modified a submodule, which is normally not something you're supposed to do. Which is fine. v3 asserts. All right, those are the changes we've made here. Okay. So let's move MV, whatever. Let's move SDK I assert exception over into dev xunit assert SDK. Right. Then let's copy this one over into dev xunit assert SDK exceptions. And then let's restore this back to its original self. So right now, if I were to run these tests, the built-in exception one should fail. It does. Okay, good. That's because I just rolled those changes back. Let's go to the assertion. I didn't do a poll to make sure that I was already good. We're good. Let's go ahead and push that. And we're going to go back into xunit source v3 asserts. All right, let's fetch. Let's hard reset the origin main. Okay, now that test should pass because we are now pulling that in via the submodule. Okay. And now we see we're pulling in the submodule. Let's do a full build. All right, so this was this. So this fixes 1777. It doesn't yet, because we haven't done timed out yet. So we're not quite done yet. All right, all the .NET Core tests pass. Good enough for me to keep on working. Okay, so the last thing we need then is on test failed, we want from timed out, right? And it's going to include the exception. That's what it does today. All right. So if we were to go look in, well, let's open fact attribute. Let's see who has references to timeout. So there's xunit test case, pulling the timeout. And the timeout is consumed elsewhere. The invoker. Invoke timeout test method async. Test timeout exception. Test timeout exception lives in xunit v3 core. It's just a regular exception. Test execution timed out after that. So, who has references to this? Just the test invoker who throws it. So one way we could do this is to just basically say we have the exact same pattern where what we'll do is we'll do failure cause, right? For builds, let's see. Indicated by an exception that is thrown, which implements an interface named I test timeout exception. I test timeout exception, regardless of the namespace or source assembly of the interface. For fact attribute, what are you? Xunion SDK test timeout exception? Xunion SDK test. Oh no, sorry. Xunion SDK I test timeout exception serves this purpose, but this is generally found by convention rather use the word explicit here. Now, do we need this level of abstraction here as well? I'm not 100% sure. Right? If you are, let's talk about where you are when you're doing this. You're basically replacing the equivalent of a test invoker. Right? This isn't necessarily an assertion from a third-party library. That said, you could do this via an assertion, right? You could imagine somebody would write assert dot timeout if longer than, or something like that, and pass a lambda. And you'd want that thing to be able to throw an exception that does this to basically indicate, hey, we timed out. So I think I'm okay with that. So I think that means we're going to add another one of these interfaces, right? So we're going to go ahead and add, where did these go? So the assertion one went up in assert, but this one can come down in core, right? Because that's where our exception is. Test timeout exception. This one can come down in core. And here we'll say I test timeout exception. And your Xunion SDK. And for I, assertion, exception. That's not the one I wanted. I wanted that one. I want to steal that message, essentially. This is a marker interface implemented to indicate that the exception is a result of a test timeout, resulting in a failure cause of this. Doesn't have to be like this, because we should have access to this type here. We do. Failure cause timeout. That's small enough to be up here. Alright, so we clearly have a few things that I'm missing here, like format on save. I feel like that's an extension. Alright, format on save. But that's not, I don't think that's where I get it from. It's gonna be one of these packages full of fun kit number 7. Written by Mads. Yeah, I want to find all the ones from Mads. Wouldn't that be nice? I want to click Mads' name. Oh, you just type it. Nice. Editor config language service. Definitely want that. I don't think that's the one I'm thinking of. More file icons, definitely nice. I wonder if it's now owned by Microsoft and not just Mads. Okay, let's stop searching for Mads. It's definitely one of these bundles full of stuff, and I'm really shocked it's not on the first page anymore. Unless I rolled right past and didn't even notice. It makes me feel like it's not here anymore. Power commands. Useful set of extensions. Like, I think that's the one it is. Except it's not. I guess I'll try that other guy's one. Format on save. I'll try this. It's got 5 stars. Right? Alright, let's save that in its weird state. Close down Visual Studio. Let the V6 thing do its magic. I like build success. We do. We do. Okay. Pop up in Visual Studio again. Which yelled at me that's out of date already, because of course, why wouldn't it be out of date already? I just installed it a couple weeks ago, the most, so of course it's out of date. Let's see. So if I go to test failed, no, that wasn't it. It was I test timeout exception, and I hit save, and it got formatted. Yay! What are the options for this thing? Format on save, yeah. Oh, perfect. Force UTF-8 with bomb, sure. Format document, yes. Remove and sort, yes. Remove trailing spaces, yes. Smart remort and sort. tab to space. No. Oh. Maybe. Line break Unix. Let's see what the tab to space thing says about this. Hey! Hey! Okay, good. We use tabs there. Okay. Very good. So test, timeout, exception. All right, you are now an I test timeout exception. Right, and then back in our tests, in our common tests, and custom assertion exception, and then lastly, public void timeout exception. Built-in timeout exception. All right, so let's do, just grab this, it's fine. We're gonna do timeout exception, and you probably need nothing. You need nothing, really? That's not the timeout exception. No, test timeout exception. Yeah, I was gonna say, there's no way you need nothing. You need a timeout, right? 2112. You are timeout. Okay, please fail. Very good. So let's go to test failed, from exception. So let's get the interfaces, right? Otherwise, we're going to say, whoops, that's not what I wanted to paste. Is I test timeout exception. That's going to be failure cause timeout. Otherwise, finally, failure cause exception. Okay. Test shall pass. I think I want to do this. Which might feel weird. But I think I want to test for this. Because you could theoretically implement both of these, and so I'm going to write a test for that. But I think the other two tests I'm going to write should now just pass. Custom timeout exception. And the last one I'm going to write is timeout exception trumps assertion exception. Alright, so the one I want here is interface I test timeout exception. My, oops, you need to be my assertion exception. You're going to be my timeout exception. And then lastly down here, we're going to need my multi-exception, which is an I assertion exception and I test timeout exception. Alright, so then this will be this. then this will be this. And away we go. Okay, very good. Now we have actually solved the issue in question. Because what's going to happen is when test timeout exception is thrown from test invoker, right, that'll get picked up, automatically turned into a test failed with a failure cause of timeout. It still has an exception, so it still has all the exception data inside of it. But there you go. All right. You can go away. We'll use you to look over these changes. Let's do a quick add. Make sure we're pleased with these changes. So we brought in the submodule, right? And then there's our test failed tests. The guard clause, default is exception. We can override it with any of our values. And then from exception, non-assertion is exception, built-in assertion is assertion, custom assertion is assertion, built-in timeout is timeout, custom timeout is timeout, and both is timeout. There's our failure cause, exception, assertion, timeout. And this is what we needed to add. Get set, we had tested the guard clause, tested the default, tested all this logic. I feel like we're dead in here. Okay, git commit fixes 1177, I think is what it was, right? 1777, add timeout to test state status. Except that's not what we're going to call it. Add failure cause to test failed to indicate exception versus assertion versus timeout. Right. We'll run the build again. That is in the here. We're going to get to check that off. I'm pretty excited about checking things off. Looks like we got a formatting error here. That's not what I wanted to edit. That's what I wanted to edit. Okay, why do we have this extra thing here? What are you, 1924? Assert equal for long arrays cuts off the actual difference. That is an assertion library. Aha, I see what happened here. This should be there. But as long as we're editing this, we might as well go ahead and I have been arranging them so that when I close them, they go up to they float to the top of the list. Where is $17.77? It's right here. That goes there. Go ahead and we'll update that. How's this doing? That worked. Go ahead and push that. Okay, we apparently were not up to date with dev. Cannot rebase locally recorded submodule modifications. That's great. Really? Let's do a get K with all this time. So reverse test run order. Okay. Get log 2. So we're going to go back to origin dev. We're going to cherry pick that. We're going to cherry pick that. Ta-da! Now we're off of dev. That was a... Oh. Hang on. What's the diff here, bro? Why is the... $5885. Get log 1 from dev xunit cert. That's what I thought. Okay. Fine. Let's go to xunit assert. Get log 1. This is where we should be. That is not where we are. v3 assert, asserts. Oh, no, that is where we are. Oh, I see. The diff was trying to put us back. Good. Build, please. Weird. Why? Oh. Oh, I did it again. Open one before you close the other. This is why apps... Hey, app developers, listen. Don't wait to save your settings until you exit. That is really dumb. As soon as I change the settings, save the changes. So if I launch another one of you... Yeah, okay. Whatever. I mean, the UI on this thing is not good. So I guess this is really what I should expect. But still, do better. Please. Please do better. Okay. So yes, that brings in a new submodule of assertion exception. Very good. Close this now so that the settings save. In case I ever have to open it again. And then we'll push. Well, this should be the end. Now I can push. Very good. 1777, you should be closed. Probably won't close it until I merge it into main, right? So let's go to main. Let's move main up to dev. Push. Now you get closed. Because you're in main. Okay. Very good. All right. Add core multiplier versions of maximum thread count. I obviously missed a backtick. Maximum thread count configuration currently offers 3 settings. Unlimited, -1, default 0, explicit thread count as a positive integer. A fourth option could be added to improve flexibility. A value which indicates a multiplier of the number of cores on the system. Let's say this format is an integer or decimal value followed by x. So the default would be equivalent to 1.0x or 1x. If you want to run with 50% more threads than cores, you could use 1.5x, double would be 2x, etc. We'll have a general gut feel for the amount of work required to keep CPU usage maximized, regardless of the number of cores available on the target machine. I like it. Wrote it, so I better like it. I feel like, yeah, this was, came from a discussion somewhere else. Don't remember where. But this goes back to configuration files, right? So we talked about max parallel threads. So JSON schema type is integer. So interestingly, can we do JSON schema floating points? Probably, I was going to say, probably just numeric anyway. JSON does not have a distinct types for integer and floating point value. Therefore, the presence or absence of a decimal point is not enough to distinguish between integers and non-integers. For example, 1 and 1.0 are two ways to represent the same value in JSON. So, integer or floating point. So the problem is, it's like I can't even have a type here, right? Like I don't think JSON schema is strong enough to say you could be an integer, or you could be a string where you have a decimal and an x. All right, so regular expressions. So you could have a type of string with a pattern that requires you have a string. But I do like that because it does mean we can so you can do string, number, integer, object, array, boolean, null. Oh, you could do 2 types, huh? Here's the problem though, like the string type allows me to do pattern, but can I do a type with number or string and then a pattern that would only apply to the strings? All right, JSON schema tester. Schema validator, hey, Newtonsoft, great. So, all right, select the schema, there's an empty schema, that's great. Let's go take a quick look at what our schema is today. Where is our schema held? Probably just in the website, right? Actually, you stay there. Let's just open another tab. So we have tabs. Do we not have the web? Unit web. There you are. Add a class fixture. Page pages. Let's add a class fixture. All right, that's something else. I really don't know. Add a class fixture. Oh, that is in docs. Okay. That probably got merged, though. Page pages. Yeah, so we were sort of way out of date on that one. Not super surprised. Because it pulls in everything, right? There is a lot of stuff there. Okay. Let's get rid of IAD class fixture. Oh, not fully merged. All right, we'll come back to that then. Let's open this up in VS Code. You trust the authors of the files in this folder. Code provides features that may automatically execute files in this folder. Trust the authors of all the files in the parent folder execute. Yeah, that's true. Did you know you can live share? Yeah, I know I can live share. Thank you. All right, so here's our schema. Current. There's our current schema. So we'll come over here. We'll paste you there. No error found in that schema. So if I were to do max thread count, is that what it's called, right? Max thread count? Max parallel threads. 1. Okay, so valid. So if I do 1x, it'll tell me not valid because I got to expect an integer but not a string. So if I go to max parallel threads and I say type could be integer or string, now it's valid. And if I do pattern ABC, string 1x does not match ABC. First of all, how about 1? 1 is still valid, so pattern only applies to strings. Very good. So if I were to do the pattern add JSON escape sequence D plus. How do I specify? Let's specify something optional here. First of all, let's go with start and end. See, that's where we get problems with the X, right? And so we want X to be on the end. Okay, good. So that's 1 or more digits, optionally followed by period and 1 or more digits. So that could be 1x. Can't be 1.x, but it could be 1.0x. Could be 1.05x. Could be 15.05x. Can't be 0.05x. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Even though that's valid, I'm going to say that's still not valid. That should be valid. Okay, that's actually easier than I thought. Nope, I want to VS Code. I don't know why you think I'm on 4 spaces there. It's definitely 2. Other integer values. So we can also set a range for integers, right? So minimum would be -1. We'll go test that in our tester. Oh, I have minimum -1. Alright, so I can be able to do -2 and you'll fail because of, yep. One X is okay. Can't do negatives here because that doesn't work, right? Do we care about the case of x? I would say x or x, right? Okay. X or x. Is a positive decimal, integer or decimal, followed by x, indicates thread count, which is a multiple of the CPU cores available. Would give 4 threads on a 4-core CPU, or 1.5x would give 6 threads on a 4-core CPU. And that seems like a reasonable description. Okay. That looks good. Let's call that V30 alpha 1. Maybe I don't want to update current yet. Maybe I just want to have that hanging out there until I'm ready to update current. In fact, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I want to do. All right, copy path. All right, so now if I diff the current it's that one. Oh my god, really? What is diff? See, that's terrible. Del force alias diff by remove item force alias diff for real diff. Yes, please. It's better. Okay. Start a new schema for V3. Go ahead and push that out. Then come back here. We can look for $schema. What do we call it? V3.0-alpha-1. All right, let's make sure that is working. Well, that's a weird icon change. All right then. It's fine. It's fine. You get deployed? You get deployed. Look at you. All deployed and everything. So that means if I come in here and I say this, I should now be able to, fine, you should get minimized. I should now be able to say max parallel threads. Numeric range restriction must be greater than or equal to -1, must match pattern, blah, 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 blah. Wow, so that's terrible. Why would you use that as... Yeah, I'm curious. Why would you do that? Give me the full path here. Let's open this file up in code. Okay, why does VS Code do this so much better than Visual Studio? If I do -2, it should yell at me, yes. That is below the minimum of -1. 14 is okay. So if I do 6x, it's okay. If I do 6x, it's okay. If I do -6x, it's not. String does not match the pattern, blah, 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 blah. That's true. However, I should be able to say 1.05x. Over here in Visual Studio land, value must be one of the following types. Integer. Yeah, you have the wrong schema up here. I just put the schema right there. Did I not? Or did I not? Okay. Now you're behaving better. 1, -1, -2. Value must be greater than or equal to -1. 1x, you're okay. 1y, you're not. -1x. 0.5, 4x, you're fine. 0.4x, you're not fine. Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. But, whatever. It's done. Okay, so that documents that there. What it means is, VS Code, you can go away. Done with you for the moment. What it means is I need to implement that. Which is, let's go look for max parallel threads. Case and whole word. Would help if I spelled threads correctly. Okay. There's our JSON configurator. So there's max parallel threads. You get used here, which is we try and int value you. Oh, I see. If you're a number and you're max parallel threads, then you're like that. If you're true or false, you're that. Otherwise, if you're a string, you could be this, which means we also need to do max parallel threads here. All right. Okay. All right. Implement me. So what will end up happening is the configuration max parallel threads is an int value. So we'll have to do the math here. And this max parallel threads in configuration, when it's 0, like that gets checked somewhere else, right? The 0 being translated to processor count is here. Oh, the default is processor count. That's not the translation from 0. And then there's configurator configuration, which actually should go away. We should get rid of .config file support. I'm surprised we still have it in here. Actually, I think I know why. It's going to be because historical reasons. So we just need to go look for environment.processor count. So that's the default, that's that, that's that. Somewhere we're going to be testing this against 0 is going to be my guess. All right. I think I need a break. So I don't think I'm going to, like, I sort of foresee that we've got like an hour and a half's worth of work here probably. And so I need a break. So I think I'm going to call a break. I think I'm going to call that the end of the stream as a result. Thanks for hanging out today. I will probably get to this later this weekend. If I do, I might do a surprise stream or I might just do it. I don't know. It depends on how I feel. Also depends on whether or not I feel like I want to take a shower. So sometimes that's the deciding factor, strangely enough. And, you know, you might not have noticed it, but let me flip back to the screen. It is 74 and sunny here in Redmond. I kind of want to get out and ride my bike while it's still nice. So I think I'm also going to do that as part of my taking a break. So anyway, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you all next time.